The hall of the Dragon Empress glowed with cold blue fire. Pillars of steel stretched into the shadows above, and every step echoed like thunder. At the end of the long chamber stood the Empress, herself taller than any human. Her black wings folded like blades, her scaled crown gleaming with deadly pride. She sat on a throne of obsidian, carved with the bones of conquered worlds. The doors crashed open. Guards dragged in a man covered in grease and blood. His clothes were torn. His hands were rough, calloused from years of work. He was no warrior. He was only a poor mechanic, pulled from a half-broken ship that had drifted close to the Empress's empire. The audience of dragon courtiers hissed with laughter. Some bared their fangs, whispering cruel words. To them, he was nothing. Just another fragile human about to be executed for trespass. The Empress leaned forward. Her voice rolled across the chamber like fire. "Who dares enter my space without tribute? Speak, little creature." The mechanic lifted his head. His face was pale, but his eyes were steady. He did not bow. He did not kneel. That alone silenced the court. "I fixed engines," he said. His voice was raw, low. "Not battleships. I had no weapons. My ship broke down. That's all." The Empress smirked. The sound was sharp, cruel. "Then you should have died in the void, mechanic. Mercy is not for the weak." Her guards shoved him forward. He stumbled, nearly falling to the floor. His hand caught the stone steps that led up to the throne. He looked up and froze. Around her neck, the Empress wore a pendant. A single jewel glowed faintly against her armored chest. It was small, fragile compared to her sharp crown and plated armor. But to the mechanic, it was brighter than a star. His breath caught in his throat. He knew that pendant, every curve of its design, every scratch on its surface, it was burned into his memory. His hand rose without thinking, trembling as he pointed at it. His voice shook, but his words were sharp as knives. "That pendant belonged to my mother." The entire chamber went still. The dragon courtiers stopped whispering. Their wings twitched uneasily. Even the guards holding him back hesitated. No one spoke to the Empress like that. No one dared claim something she owned. The Empress blinked once. Then she laughed. It was not the laugh of joy. It was the sound of storms breaking mountains. Her claws tapped against the arm of her throne. "Your mother? Do you think I, the ruler of 1,000 worlds, were trinkets from human peasants? Fool." But as she spoke, her hand rose, almost by instinct, to touch the pendant. Her claw lingered on it for a heartbeat too long. The mechanic's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, pulling against the guard's hold. His eyes were fire now, burning through fear. "I remember the day she gave it to me," he said. "Before the soldiers came, before the fires, she said, 'Keep it safe. It holds our blood.' And then she was gone. I thought I lost it forever. But here it is. Around your neck." A shiver rippled through the court. The dragons shifted on their taloned feet. They were used to seeing their Empress invincible, mocking, cruel. But now her smile wavered. Only for a second, she rose from her throne, wings stretching wide. Her shadow swallowed the chamber. She towered over him, scales glittering like black steel. Her eyes golden and merciless, locked on his face. "You dare claim this?" She hissed. The air grew hot, heavy as smoke curled from her lips. "Do you know what happens to liars in my hall?" The mechanic's heart pounded, but he didn't look away. His voice dropped to a whisper, just loud enough for the court to hear. "I know the truth hurts you more than death would hurt me." The Empress froze. Her claws tightened around the pendant, almost as if she feared it would slip away. For the first time in a century, the Dragon Empress looked uncertain. The guards glanced at one another. Whispers spread like wildfire through the chamber. Could a poor human truly know the secret of the Empress's jewel? The Empress snarled and snapped her wings shut. Her laughter returned, louder than before, meant to hide the crack in her mask. "You are bold, human. Bold and foolish. This pendant was taken in war. It belongs to me now, as does your life." She raised her hand. The guard shoved the mechanic to his knees, pressing blades to his throat. The chamber filled with the sharp hiss of dragon voices chanting for his death. But the mechanic was not afraid. His gaze never left the pendant. His lips curved in the faintest of smiles. "Then kill me," he said softly. "But you will never kill the truth of where that pendant came from." The Empress's hand trembled. Her claws stopped inches from giving the order. Her golden eyes narrowed, searching his face for weakness. For a lie, she found none. The pendant burned faintly, as if answering his words. The hall grew silent again. The dragons stared. The poor mechanic knelt in chains, yet his words had cut deeper than any blade. He had cracked the armor of their Empress. The mechanic lifted his chin. Blood dripped from his lip, but his voice was clear. "One day, the truth will burn brighter than your throne, and when that day comes, you will remember my mother's name." The Empress lowered her hand, her face carved in stone. She gave no order. No one moved. For the first time in living memory, the Dragon Empress hesitated. The mechanic had spoken only a few words, but those words had turned an entire empire silent and deep inside. The Empress knew his claim was not a lie. The pendant glowed again, faint but steady, a symbol of something long buried. Something even she could not laugh away. The story of a poor mechanic had just begun. The throne hall of the Dragon Empress was still silent. The poor mechanic's words echoed in the cold air, refusing to fade. Every dragon in the chamber stared at the small glowing pendant, as if it now carried more weight than the Empress herself. The Empress stood tall, her wings folded close, her face calm. But behind her golden eyes, something sharp and dangerous trembled. Her guards waited for her command to finish the human, but she raised a clawed hand. "Leave him," she ordered. The guards froze. Some looked at each other in confusion. No one disobeyed the Empress, but no one understood why she had spared him either. Slowly, blades lowered, though their claws stayed ready. The mechanic was forced to his feet. He wavered slightly, his body weak, but his gaze never left her pendant. He could not tear his eyes away. It was all that remained of his mother. Now it burned on the neck of his enemy. The Empress's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "You speak as if you know this jewel, human, but your words are dust. Tell me what makes you believe it belonged to your mother?" The mechanic swallowed hard. His throat was dry, his hands trembling, yet his voice was steady. "Because she told me. She said it had been in our family for generations. She said one day it would show who we really are. And then, she pressed it into my hand before she died." The dragons around the hall shifted uneasily. They had fought humans before, broken their colonies, stolen their treasures, but none had ever claimed such a thing to the Empress's face. The Empress tilted her head, her sharp crown catching the light. "A tale told by a dying woman means nothing. Do you think words can make you noble? Do you think grief makes you strong?" The mechanic's fists clenched. "I think truth makes me strong, and I know the truth when I see it. That pendant is my mother's." For a moment, her mask cracked. A flicker of memory crossed her face. Flames, a colony burning. She remembered pulling the jewel from the hand of a fallen woman, a human who had dared stand against her army. But the Empress's pride was stronger than memory. She let out a low growl that shook the chamber. "You lie." The mechanic took a step forward. The guards moved to stop him, but she raised her claw again. Her eyes narrowed. She wanted to hear more. "You wear it like it's yours," the mechanic said. His voice grew louder, filled with anger now. "But you don't even know the name of the one who carried it before you." "I do. I know her name. I know the world where you took it." The court gasped. Dragons leaned closer, their wings brushing against one another. For the first time, they were listening to a human. The Empress's lips curled into a cold smile, but her claws tapped nervously against the jewel. "Speak then, human. If you truly know, tell me the name of this world you think I burned. Tell me the name that haunts you." The mechanic's voice cracked, but the word came out strong. "Sarian." The chamber fell silent again. Many of the dragons hissed softly, the sound sharp as knives. They knew that name. Syrian had been one of the fiercest resistances against the Empress's rule. Its people had fought with fire and steel until the very end. It had taken her fleet months to crush them. The Empress's claws tightened on the throne. She remembered it too well. The burning skies. The human woman who had refused to kneel, who had worn the pendant even as she faced her army. The memory stabbed like a blade she could not pull free. The mechanic's eyes blazed. That was my world. My mother died there. And now her blood speaks through me. The Empress's laughter burst from her throat, loud and sharp, but there was no joy in it this time. It was a shield against the rising whispers of her court. You are bold, human. Bold enough to spit fire in the face of a dragon? But boldness is not power. Her wings spread wide, and the flames along the walls roared higher. You think a trinket makes you more than you are? You are still a broken mechanic, crawling in the dirt. Nothing more. But her words did not silence the whispers. Dragons murmured among themselves. Some looked at her with doubt, others with curiosity. They had never seen their Empress shaken. The mechanic stood tall, though his body was bruised and weak. His voice was calm now, almost quiet, but it cut through the noise like steel. You can laugh. You can call me nothing. But the pendant knows the truth. You feel it. That's why you haven't killed me yet. The Empress's eyes flared with fury. She slammed her claw against the throne, cracking the stone. Sparks flew into the air. The court fell silent once more. Enough, she hissed. Smoke curled from her lips. You think your mother's blood means anything? Blood is ash. Empires are built on strength alone. I will show you the meaning of true power. The mechanic didn't flinch. He stared straight into her burning eyes. His voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the chamber. Then show me. But you can't change what you stole. You can't change where that pendant came from. It belongs to me, and one day, it will return. The Empress's claws twitched on the jewel. The glow of the pendant pulsed faintly, as if answering his words. Her laughter did not come this time. Instead, she turned her back and sat slowly on her throne. Take him to the cells, she ordered. I will decide his fate when I tire of his lies. The guards seized him, dragging him away. But even as they pulled him through the heavy doors, the mechanic's eyes never left hers. His defiance burned brighter than fire, and the Empress, for all her power, could not silence the small voice in her. Heart that whispered the one thing she refused to believe. The mechanic was telling the truth. The dungeon of the Dragon Empress was made of stone older than empires. The mechanic sat in the shadows, chains biting into his wrists. The air smelled of iron and smoke. Yet even in the darkness, he kept seeing it, the pendant glowing faintly against the Empress's chest. His mother's pendant. His mother's memory. Hours passed. Guards with wings of steel scales stood outside his cell, whispering in their tongue. They thought he could not understand, but he knew enough. They spoke of Syrian. They spoke of his words. The court had not stopped talking about him since he left the throne hall, and neither had the Empress. She sat alone in her chamber, her wings folded tight, staring into a polished shard of obsidian where memories lived like ghosts. In her mind she saw again the colony of Sarion, flames climbing into the sky, human warriors screaming their last defiance. She saw the woman who stood in the ruins, clutching the pendant even as the dragon struck her down. A woman who would not kneel. The Empress had laughed then, but now the laughter echoed hollow in her ears. She rose with a hiss, storming down the dark halls until she stood before the mechanic's cell. The guards opened the door in silence. Inside, the mechanic lifted his head. His face was pale, but his eyes still burned. You couldn't sleep, he said quietly. Her claws scraped against the bars. You are bold, human. But boldness does not make your lies true. The mechanic leaned forward, the chains rattling. You wouldn't be here if you believed they were lies. Her eyes flashed. She opened the door and stepped inside, her shadow filling the room. The glow of the pendant cast long, sharp lines across the walls. You know nothing of power, she hissed. This jewel is mine, taken in war like all treasures worth keeping. Your words are ash. Ash. But her voice was too sharp, too defensive. She knew it, and so did he. The mechanic shook his head slowly. If it was just a jewel, you wouldn't care. You'd have killed me already, but you haven't, because you know it's more than that. You know it belonged to her. The Empress's talons flexed, scraping sparks against the stone. She wanted to strike him down, end his words forever. But her hand refused to move. Instead, she snarled and turned away. Do you think one woman matters? I have burned hundreds of worlds. I have crushed kings and broken fleets. Her name is dust in the void. The mechanic's voice cut through the air like steel. Her name was Lyra, and she was my mother. The Empress froze. The cell seemed to shrink around her. The name echoed in her ears, louder than any battle cry she had ever heard. Lyra, the woman who had stared into her eyes as she struck her down. The woman whose pendant she had ripped from her dying hand. The mechanic saw the change in her face. He knew then that she remembered. He pressed on, his words sharp and merciless. You killed her. You burned our world. And now you wear her memory as if it's a trophy. The Empress spun, her wings snapping open, her roar shaking the walls. Silence. But the mechanic did not flinch. His chains rattled as he stood to his full height. You can roar all you want. It won't change the truth. Her golden eyes burned with fury. Yet deep within them, something else stirred. Fear. For the first time, her power seemed smaller. Her throne felt less steady. A poor mechanic, bound in chains, spoken words that even her fire could not burn away. She stepped closer, her claws inches from his face. Smoke curled from her lips as she whispered, If you speak her name again, I will tear your tongue from your mouth. The mechanic smiled faintly. Then you'll never silence me. Because her name is already carved into your memory. You'll hear it every time you touch that pendant, Lyra. My mother. The woman you could never truly defeat. Her claws trembled. She turned suddenly, storming from the cell before her rage betrayed her. The door slammed shut, leaving him in darkness again. But in that darkness the mechanic felt something shift. He had seen the fear in her eyes. He had touched the wound she thought no one knew she carried. The guards whispered nervously outside, their wings twitching. They had seen it too. Their Empress was shaken, and far above, in the throne hall. The pendant glowed faintly once more. The Empress returned to her throne, her court waiting in silence. She spread her wings, masking her doubt with fire. He is a liar, she declared. Nothing more. Do not listen to his words. But the court was restless. Dragons exchanged uneasy glances. They had never heard their Empress defend herself so desperately. The mechanic's words had spread like sparks across dry wood, and sparks could burn an empire. That night, as the torches dimmed and the court dispersed, the Empress sat alone. Her claws curled around the pendant, holding it tight against her chest. But the harder she held it, the louder the name echoed in her mind. Lyra, her laughter returned, hollow and forced. She whispered to the empty hall, as if to silence the ghost in her heart. He is nothing. He is no one. And yet... She stopped, unable to finish. The pendant pulsed once against her skin, faint heartbeat, and she realized she was afraid. The throne hall burned with torchlight. Dragons filled the chamber, wings folded, eyes sharp. The mechanic was dragged forward again, chains rattling across the stone floor. This time, there was no mocking laughter. The court was silent, waiting. The Empress sat on her throne, her wings stretched like black steel, her face carved in fury. She had spent the night restless, haunted by the name of Lyra. Now she had chosen her answer. Silence through blood. Bring him here, she ordered. The guards shoved the mechanic to his knees before her. His face was bruised, his clothes torn, but his eyes still burned with defiance. The Empress stood. Her voice thundered across the chamber. This human is a liar. He dares claim what belongs to me. He dares to bring weakness into my hall. There is only one fate for such insolence. Her claws pointed downward. Kill him. The guards raised their blades. Steel glinted in the firelight. The mechanic's breath grew heavy. Death was seconds away, but he did not bow. He did not beg. Instead, he lifted his chin and spoke. "You can take my life, but you'll never take the truth. You killed Lyra, and one day all your empire will know." The words struck like thunder. The court shifted uneasily, wings twitching. The guards hesitated for just a moment. The Empress's claws clenched. "Do it," she roared. Blades swung down, but the mechanic moved. His hands, chained, still carried the instinct of years working with engines. He twisted, slammed his wrist against the guard's weapon, and sparks flew. With a sudden snap, the chain broke loose from the weakened shackle. Gasps filled the chamber. The mechanic surged to his feet. He seized the broken chain and swung it like a whip, cracking it across a guard's scaled face. Another lunged at him, but he ducked low, rolling across the floor. His hands found what was meant as his executioner's blade, and he wrenched it free. The poor mechanic, beaten and chained, now stood armed before the throne of the Dragon Empress. The court erupted in chaos. Guards charged, wings flaring, but he fought like a man with nothing left to lose. Every strike of his blade was raw, desperate, filled with fire. He moved not like a warrior, but like a worker who had spent his life fixing machines. Turning every tool into a weapon, he slammed a guard's helmet against the stone. He cut another's wing joint with brutal precision. His body bled, his strength faltered, but still he fought. The Empress watched, her golden eyes narrowing. There was no fear in him, only defiance. At last the guards forced him back, blades circling. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Blood dripped from his lip. The Empress stepped forward, her shadow swallowing him. "You are a fool," she said. Her voice was low, sharp. "Do you think you can defy me with scraps and courage? I am eternal. My empire is eternal. You are nothing but dust." The mechanic raised his blade. His voice was steady, fierce. "Then why does the pendant glow when I speak?" Her eyes flicked down. The jewel against her chest pulsed faintly, alive with light. The court gasped. The Empress hissed, clawing at it as if to silence it, but the glow only grew brighter. The mechanic lowered his blade, his gaze fixed on the jewel. "It knows me," he whispered. "It remembers." The ground shook. Symbols etched into the stone floor lit up, ancient lines that none of the dragons recognized. Fire raced along the cracks, spreading from the throne outward until the entire chamber glowed. The guards stumbled back. Even the Empress herself faltered for a breath. The pendant burned with light, casting a halo across the mechanic's face. His wounds shimmered, the blood fading, the pain lessening. The Empress snarled, "No, this cannot be." The mechanic lifted his head, his voice carrying through the chamber. "You stole it from my mother, but it was never yours. It was never meant for you." The court fell silent. Dragons, who had once laughed at him, now stared in awe and fear. The Empress's wings flared wide, her voice breaking into a roar. "Enough. I am the Empress. No trinket, no human, no memory can defy me." She struck with her claws, fire rushing toward him. The mechanic stood still. The flames curled around his body, but the light-oath Empress watched, her golden eyes narrowing. There was no fear in him, only defiance. At last the guards forced him back, blades circling. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Blood dripped from his lip. The Empress stepped forward, her shadow swallowing him. "You are a fool," she said. Her voice was low, sharp. "Do you think you can defy me with scraps and courage? I am eternal. My empire is eternal. You are nothing but dust." The mechanic raised his blade. His voice was steady, fierce. "Then why does the pendant glow when I speak?" Her eyes flicked down. The jewel against her chest pulsed faintly, alive with light. The court gasped. The Empress hissed, clawing at it as if to silence it, but the glow only grew brighter. The mechanic lowered his blade, his gaze fixed on the jewel. "It knows me," he whispered. "It remembers." The ground shook. Symbols etched into the stone floor lit up, ancient lines that none of the dragons recognized. Fire raced along the cracks, spreading from the throne outward until the entire chamber glowed. The guards stumbled back. Even the Empress herself faltered for a breath. The pendant burned with light, casting a halo across the mechanic's face. His wounds shimmered, the blood fading, the pain lessening. The Empress snarled, "No, this cannot be." The mechanic lifted his head, his voice carrying through the chamber. "You stole it from my mother, but it was never yours. It was never meant for you." The court fell silent. Dragons, who had once laughed at him, now stared in awe and fear. The Empress's wings flared wide, her voice breaking into a roar. "Enough. I am the Empress. No trinket, no human, no memory can defy me." She struck with her claws, fire rushing toward him. The mechanic stood still. The flames curled around his body, but the light of the pendant wrapped him in a shield. He did not burn. The court gasped. Dragons, who had feared nothing for centuries now, stepped back. For the first time, fire had failed. The mechanic lowered his blade, staring up at the Empress. His voice was calm, almost soft, but every word cut deeper than steel. "You call me nothing. But nothing just stood against your fire." The Empress's roar shook the chamber. She leaped forward, her talons aimed for his heart. But as her claws descended, the pendant flared like a star, casting light across the throne hall. The mechanic's body glowed with it. His chains melted away. The Empress froze mid-strike, her claws inches from his chest. Her golden eyes widened in shock. The mechanic met her gaze. His words rang clear, steady, unbroken. "This is only the beginning." The chamber trembled. The dragons stared, torn between fear and awe. The poor mechanic, once nothing, now stood untouchable in the light of the pendant and the Empress. For all her power had been stopped. The throne hall glowed with fire and light. The Empress's claws hung frozen in the air, just inches from the mechanic's chest. Flames still curled from her mouth. The glow of the pendant had stopped everything. Every dragon in the court stared, wings twitching in disbelief. The human, just a poor mechanic, stood untouched in the middle of the storm. Chains lay melted at his feet. His wounds shimmered as if healing from within. His eyes, once tired and desperate, now burned with something fierce, something alive. The pendant pulsed again, brighter this time. The mechanic felt the warmth spreading through his chest, flowing into his arms, steadying his breath. It was not just light. It was strength. It was memory. The Empress staggered back a single step, her golden eyes wide. She growled, forcing herself to stand tall, but her voice cracked with rage. "This is a trick, a curse. That jewel belongs to me." But the pendant answered with another pulse of light, as if mocking her words. Symbols blazed across the floor, ancient lines weaving a circle around the mechanic. The dragons hissed in fear. Many had served the Empress for centuries, but none had ever seen such power. The mechanic lifted his hand slowly. The light moved with him, flowing like fire in his veins. He looked at the Empress, his voice low but steady. "It doesn't belong to you. It never did." The court shivered. Some dragons stepped back. Others leaned forward, caught between terror and awe. Then the pendant spoke, not with words of metal or fire, but with a voice older than the throne itself, a voice that filled the air, deep and unyielding. "Blood returns to claim the dragon throne." The words echoed through every stone, rattling the torches on the walls. The dragons gasped, some falling to their knees without meaning to. The prophecy was old, so old most had forgotten it. But now the jewel itself had spoken. The Empress's roar cut through the hall, desperate and furious. "No, lies. This prophecy is dead. I destroyed it." But her denial rang hollow. The pendant pulsed again, its light burning against her scales. The mechanic's wounds closed completely, leaving only scars. The guards who had struck him now stared in silence, weapons lowered. The mechanic turned slowly, looking at the court. Dragons who had mocked him now met his eyes with unease. Some even bowed their heads, as if compelled by the ancient light. He spoke, his voice calm but strong. "You see it. You hear it. The throne was never hers. She stole it, just as she stole this pendant. But blood remembers. The truth remembers. The Empress's wings flared wide, her shadow stretching across the hall. Smoke poured from her mouth as she screamed, "Do not listen. I am your Empress. I am eternal." But her words no longer commanded the same weight. Doubt had slipped into the hearts of her court. The mechanic stood taller, the light wrapping around him like armor. His eyes never left hers. "You fear the truth. That's why you tried to kill me. That's why you tremble now." Her claws shook, just slightly. She slammed them against the stone to hide it, cracks splitting the floor. Her voice was pure rage. "You are nothing. A broken human. Do you think fate would choose you?" The pendant glowed once more, brighter than fire, and the voice returned. "The heir has risen. The throne will test his blood." The mechanic staggered at the words, the weight of them heavy in his chest. He had never asked for this. He had never wanted power. He had only wanted the pendant back, to honor his mother's memory. But now the eyes of an empire were on him. The dragons whispered in their tongue. Some bowed. Others hissed in fury. The court was splitting before the Empress's eyes. The mechanic's voice broke through the noise. "I don't need your throne. I don't need your crown. But I will take back what belongs to my blood. And I will end the empire you built on lies." The pendant wrapped him in a shield. He did not burn. The court gasped. Dragons who had feared nothing for centuries now stepped back. For the first time, fire had failed. The mechanic lowered his blade, staring up at the Empress. His voice was calm, almost soft, but every word cut deeper than steel. "You call me nothing. But nothing just stood against your fire." The Empress's roar shook the chamber. She leaped forward, her talons aimed for his heart. But as her claws descended, the pendant flared like a star, casting light across the throne hall. The mechanic's body glowed with it. His chains melted away. The Empress froze mid-strike, her claws inches from his chest. Her golden eyes widened in shock. The mechanic met her gaze. His words rang clear, steady, unbroken. "This is only the beginning." The chamber trembled. The dragons stared, torn between fear and awe. The poor mechanic, once nothing, now stood untouchable in the light of the pendant, and the Empress, for all her power, had been stopped. The Empress shrieked, her fury shaking the hall. Flames burst from her wings, black smoke choking the air. "Enough. You will not take what is mine. I will rip the jewel from your corpse." She lunged forward, claws tearing through the light. The mechanic raised his arms, and the glow of the pendant wrapped around him like a shield. Her claws struck, but they slid off the light as if striking solid steel. Sparks burst, flames scattered, but he stood untouched. The dragons gasped louder. Some fell back, wings curling around their bodies. The Empress's power, the fire that had crushed countless worlds, had failed. The mechanic lowered his arms. His breathing slowed. His words were quiet, but they echoed across the chamber. "You can't kill me. Not while it remembers me." The Empress froze, panting, her chest heaving. For the first time in centuries, she looked less like a ruler and more like a cornered beast. The pendant pulsed again, steady and strong. The mechanic felt its warmth filling him, steadying his heart. He looked around at the court. "Decide who you serve," he said. "Her lies or the truth that even her fire can't destroy." The court was silent, torn. Some lowered their heads toward him. Others turned away, afraid. But the Empress did not move. Her golden eyes burned with hatred, locked on his face. Her wings twitched with rage. She opened her mouth, but no words came. The pendant glowed brighter than ever, its light filling the hall, and in that light, the Empress's silence was louder than all her roars. The throne hall was silent, lit only by the glow of the pendant. Dragons stood frozen, their golden eyes flicking between the poor mechanic and the Empress. The jewel's light clung to him like armor, making him look taller, stronger, as if his mother's spirit wrapped around him. But silence never lasted in the court of dragons. The Empress's wings snapped open with a sound. like thunder. Her scales blazed with molten fire, her claws striking sparks on the stone floor. She looked down at the mechanic, her voice shaking the walls. "You dare stand against me? You dare steal the loyalty of my court? I will burn you until nothing remains but ash." The dragons closest to her recoiled, the heat of her fury burning the air. Some backed away. Others lowered their heads, not daring to look at her. The mechanic stood still, the pendant glowing at his chest. He was afraid, his heart thundered, his breath came quick, but he would not kneel. He looked up at her, his voice calm. "You already tried. Your fire can't touch me." The words struck deeper than blades. The Empress roared, her voice filled with rage. She leaped from her throne, her wings spreading wide as she rose into the air. Smoke and flame poured from her mouth, raining fire across the hall. The dragons scattered, wings folding to shield themselves. The court turned into chaos. Columns cracked, flames roared, stone melted beneath her fury, but in the center of it all, the mechanic still stood. The pendant blazed like a star, wrapping him in light. The flames curled around him, snapping and hissing, but they could not touch him. His clothes were untouched, his skin unburned, his eyes fixed on hers. The Empress landed hard, stone breaking beneath her weight. Her claws tore through the light, striking with enough force to shatter walls. Sparks flew as her blows met the glowing shield. The mechanic stumbled under the impact, but he did not fall. The court gasped, watching in disbelief. No one had ever survived her full fury. Entire armies had turned to ash beneath her fire. Yet this poor human, this mechanic, still stood unbroken. Her rage grew wilder, her attacks faster. She clawed, she struck, she breathed fire hotter than suns. Each time the light answered, protecting him. The harder she fought, the brighter it burned, and with every failed strike, the doubt in the court deepened. The mechanic raised his voice above the storm. "You can't destroy me. You can't destroy the truth. The pendant chose me, not you." The Empress roared, her claws striking again and again. "You are nothing. Nothing." But the word nothing no longer sounded true. Her wings spread wide, her chest glowing with fire. She drew in a deep breath, preparing to unleash her deadliest weapon, the black flame. Fire so hot it could melt starship hulls. The dragons in the hall screamed, diving for cover. None had ever seen her unleash it inside her own throne room. The mechanic clenched his fists. He knew this would be the end, or the beginning. The Empress's jaws opened. Darkness and flames surged forward in a storm of destruction. The mechanic braced himself, the pendant pulsing against his chest. The black flame struck. The world turned white. The hall shook, stone cracking, pillars crumbling. Dragons shielded their faces from the searing heat. The sound of it roared like the end of time. When the fire finally cleared, smoke choked the air. The court lifted their heads cautiously, expecting to see nothing but ash, but through the haze. The mechanic still stood. The light around him burned stronger than ever. The black flame had split against it like water on steel. He was untouched. Gasps filled the hall. Dragons dropped to their knees, some in awe, some in terror. For centuries they had believed their Empress was invincible. But here was a human fragile, weak, ordinary who had stood against her and survived. The mechanic raised his voice, sharp and steady. "You see now? She isn't eternal. Her fire fails. Her lies break. She's not what you think she is." The Empress staggered, her wings shaking. Her claws trembled as she pointed at him. Her voice cracked with fury and fear. "No, he is a fraud. He is nothing but a thief of words. You belong to me?" But her court no longer believed as they once had. Some dragons lowered their heads to the mechanic as if bowing. Others whispered in their tongue, voices sharp and uncertain. The Empress saw it. She saw loyalty slipping away, and for the first time, true fear entered her golden eyes. The mechanic took a step forward, the light following him. His shadow stretched across the floor, touching the steps of her throne. "You've ruled with fear," he said. but fear can't last forever. Not when the truth burns brighter. Her roar shook the hall once more, but it no longer carried the weight of command. It sounded desperate, like a beast fighting its own end. The mechanic stood tall, the pendant blazing at his chest. His voice rose above her cries. "You ask who I am? I'll tell you. I am the son of Lyra, the woman you could never truly defeat. And I am your reckoning." The court fell silent. The words echoed through the chamber, sinking into every dragon's heart. The Empress staggered back a step. Her wings faltered. For the first time in her reign, she looked small. And the mechanic, once a poor worker with nothing, stood unbroken in her fire. The light of the pendant blazed brighter, casting shadows across the throne, and the throne itself seemed to tremble, as if waiting to decide who it truly belonged to. The throne hall of the Dragon Empress no longer felt unshakable. The walls were cracked, scorched by fire. The floor still glowed with the ancient symbols the pendant had awoken. Dragons filled the chamber, their voices rising in chaos. Some hissed in loyalty to their empress, others bowed their heads toward the mechanic. The empire itself was splitting. The empress stood tall, her wings shaking with rage. She spread them wide, flames dripping from her jaws. Her voice thundered over the noise. "Silence. You serve me. I am your empress, eternal and unbroken." But the mechanic stepped forward, the light of the pendant blazing on his chest. His voice carried clear and sharp, cutting through her roar. "You saw it. Her fire failed. Her claws could not touch me. She is not eternal. She is not unbroken. She is afraid." Gasps echoed through the court. Some dragons growled, their loyalty burning bright for their empress. But others whispered in awe, their golden eyes fixed on him. One young dragon warrior dropped his weapon to the floor and bowed. "The jewel speaks. The blood has returned." That single act was enough to spark fire. Dragons shouted, some raising claws to strike the mechanic, others turning to defend him. The chamber exploded into chaos. The Empress roared, her voice shaking stone. "Traitors, you will all burn." Her loyalists charged, claws scraping sparks from the floor. The rebels rose to meet them, wings snapping open. The throne hall became a battlefield. The mechanic ducked as a claw slashed past his head. He stumbled, grabbing a fallen guard spear. He had no training, no armor, but the pendant's light guided his hands. Each strike landed true. He parried claws, deflected wings, and struck with desperate precision. Above, dragons clashed in the air, their wings cracking like thunder. Loyalists and rebels collided, tearing at each other in the skies of the hall. Firestorms raged, pillars shattered, stone crumbled. The Empress stood at the center of it all, her eyes locked on the mechanic. Her fury was absolute. Her empire was breaking, and only his death could silence the storm. She leaped forward, her claws tearing through her own rebels to reach him. The mechanic braced himself, raising the spear. Their clash shook the ground, the pendant blazing between them. Her strength was overwhelming, her strikes like falling mountains. He barely held her off, each blow shattering the stone beneath his feet. But the pendant's glow steadied him. His arms did not break. His spirit did not bend. Dragons around them stopped fighting, their eyes drawn to the duel. It was no longer just a battle. It was judgment. The mechanic gasped, forcing the words out through clenched teeth. "This ends with you. Not with your court. Not with your empire. With you and me," Empress snarled, her wings spreading wide. Her voice shook the chamber. "Then face me, human. Face me as prey faces its hunter. I will tear your soul apart." The pendant pulsed again. Light flared around him, brighter than ever before. The ground shook, the throne itself glowing faintly. The court fell silent once more, their battle frozen by awe. The throne was listening. The mechanic tightened his grip on the spear. He met the Empress's blazing eyes with steady fire of his own. "I am not your prey. I am the son of Lyra, and I will not kneel." The words cracked through the hall like thunder. The Empress roared and surged forward, her full strength aimed at him. The mechanic braced, the pendant's power blazing. Their clash sent shockwaves through the hall, stone shattering, dragons tumbling from the skies. The throne trembled. The Empire held its breath. Outside, the sound of war grew louder. Fleets in orbit had learned of the rebellion. Loyalists clashed with rebels in the stars, their ships firing streams of flame and steel. The galaxy itself was watching as the Dragon Empress's rule began to crack. Inside, the mechanic and the Empress fought on. He struck with desperate strength, guided by the pendant. She raged with fury, her claws raining fire. Sparks lit the shadows, each strike louder than thunder, and though she was vast, and he was small, he did not fall. Every moment he stood, every strike he survived, gave courage to the rebels. Dragons turned against their own, their faith breaking. The tide shifted. The mechanic felt the pendant's voice in his chest, strong and steady. The throne tests its air. He gasped, sweat pouring down his face, blood on his hands. But he stood taller, stronger. His voice rang clear. "You will not win, Empress. Your reign of fear is ending." Her roar was deafening. She struck with all her fury, wings shattering stone, fire consuming air. But the light met her blow, holding firm. The court screamed in awe. Some bowed, some hissed, some cried out. The Empire itself trembled. The duel had become more than a fight. It was the throne's judgment, and everyone knew only one of them would walk away. The throne hall shook as stone cracked and fire roared. Dragons circled above, torn between loyalty and rebellion. The throne itself glowed faintly as if alive, waiting for its true master. At the center, the mechanic and the Dragon Empress clashed. His spear met her claws, sparks flying. Her wings battered the air like storms, her flames roared like suns. Yet through it all, the mechanic stood. His arms shook, his body bled, but the pendant blazed at his chest, refusing to let him fall. The Empress's eyes blazed gold. She bared her fangs in a snarl. "You think you can defeat me? A human? Fragile, weak, nothing but dust? I have ruled for centuries. I have crushed empires. You are nothing." The mechanic's breath came hard, his chest heaving. He forced himself to look straight into her eyes. His voice was steady, even in the storm. "Maybe I am nothing, but nothing has stood against everything you are, and nothing still stands." The court gasped. Dragons froze in the skies above. The words struck deeper than any spear. The Empress roared, her claws raining down in a storm of fury. The mechanic stumbled, his spear splintering under the force. She pinned him back, her talons pressing against the glowing light. For a moment, her strength seemed unstoppable, but then the pendant pulsed. The light flared brighter than ever before, forcing her back. She screamed, shielding her eyes. Her wings snapped wide, but they trembled now. For the first time, the court saw her weaken. The mechanic staggered forward. His voice rang out, louder than her roars. "You built your throne on fear. You built your empire on blood. You killed my mother and wore her memory like a trophy. But fear ends. Blood remembers. And truth cannot burn." The throne itself shuddered, glowing in answer. Dragons dropped to their knees, some willingly, others by instinct. The hall itself seemed to bow to his words. The Empress snarled, stumbling back. "Lies, all lies. I am eternal." The mechanic raised his hand. The pendant burned with fire and memory. His voice cut through the air. "Eternal? You're not eternal. You're just afraid. Afraid of the truth. Afraid of her. Afraid of Lyra." The name echoed across the chamber. Lyra, his mother. The ghost who had never left. The Empress screamed, a roar of rage and terror. She lunged, her claws tearing the air, wings battering stone. But the light met her once more, wrapping her in its blaze. The court gasped as the flames of her fury turned back on her. Her scales cracked. Her crown of horns splintered. The mechanic's voice thundered above her scream. "You couldn't kill her spirit, and you can't kill me. Because I am her blood. I am her son, and I am your reckoning." pendant flared like a star. Light erupted, flooding the hall. The Empress's roar broke into silence. Her body shook, her wings faltered. With a final cry, she crashed to her knees before the throne. The hall went still. Smoke curled in the air. The once unstoppable Empress lay broken, her golden eyes wide with disbelief. She looked up at the mechanic, her voice trembling for the first time. "Who are you?" The mechanic stepped forward, the pendant glowing steady at his chest. His voice was quiet, but every dragon heard it. "I'm the son of Lyra, the woman you could never truly defeat. And today, I finished what she started." The Empress shuddered, her strength draining. Her wings folded weakly. The jewel she had once claimed burned against her chest, rejecting her. She reached for it, but her claws slipped. The light left her, flowing fully into the mechanic. Her crown cracked. Her throne shook. And with a final whisper, the Empress collapsed, her power gone. The hall trembled. The dragons bowed low, wings folding. Some wept, others growled, but none dared resist. The Empress had fallen. The mechanic stood at the base of the throne. The pendant's glow softened, no longer a blaze but a steady light, warm against his chest. He looked around at the court. His voice was calm. "I didn't come here to take your throne. I came here for the truth, and the truth has already chosen." The dragons lowered their heads deeper. The throne pulsed faintly, as if in agreement, but the mechanic did not climb it. He turned away. His steps echoed across the hall. His words followed, soft but strong. "My mother didn't raise me to conquer. She raised me to build. You can kneel to fear if you want, but I'll build something better. Something worth kneeling to." The court remained bowed as he walked out of the hall, leaving the throne trembling in his wake. Far above, the stars burned bright. Fleets that had clashed in the void now fell silent as news spread the Empress was gone. The mechanic stood at the edge of the hall, looking up through the broken roof into the night sky. The pendant glowed faintly, steady and calm. He whispered, his voice almost breaking, "Mother, I brought it home." The light flickered once, like an answer, and the story of a poor mechanic who defied an empress became the legend that would burn through the stars forever.